Hey, what's up? It's Bon. Let's talk about Mass Effect. And actually, let's talk about Mass Effect Andromeda. This week I wrapped up a playthrough of the trilogy, my first one playing as Fem Shep, or Jane Shepard, as she's known by some people. And I'm going to do a whole video on that and just talk about that and my feelings on it, which will probably be a little controversial, but that's okay. And so I didn't know what I wanted to do next. We have games are coming soon, but there's nothing I really wanted to jump into yet. So I figured I would do really technically a second playthrough of Andromeda. One thing that has been interesting about Andromeda is the assumption that it will be involved in the next game. And I have even had some ideas of how the initiative, who is the organization you're a part of, or the Andromeda Initiative is the organization you're a part of in Andromeda, that they, or the remains of them and their leader, known as the Mysterious Benefactor, could be a factor in the next game in the Milky Way, because as we know from Andromeda, the person who owned that initiative, or who funded it and stuff, did not go on the mission with them, and the person everyone thought it was a decoy, essentially. So one of the things that I've been thinking about is how they had to have like a base or like a dry dock or whatever to build these insanely huge spaceships, that the Nexus, and then all of the arcs that we're aware of, and to presumably do it in secret, because the whole idea is that the launch of the Andromeda Initiative happens, I believe, in the time frame of Mass Effect 2, but then in Mass Effect 2 and 3 we never hear anything about this, because they just kind of made it up and retconned it and put it into the lore. Even though in Mass Effect 2 and 3, we are, the Shadow Broker, who's kind of the knower of all things, never mentions this. And this would definitely have been a subject because of the resources they would have been using, the intellectual resources that they were putting on these arcs and sending them to a whole nother galaxy. This would have been a significant story during the trilogy times. Yet we never hear a single word about it because they made it up later. And one of the things is this dry dock, or this base. I figured, well, hey, we could have a whole thing where we go and find that base in the next game, and maybe that's how they make a connection between Andromeda and the trilogy in this next game. That seems like it's going to be a trilogy sequel. Well, so I fire up Mass Effect Andromeda, and this is what I see.
Each bold leap forward was achieved by those willing to do anything to attain it. We are, all of us, leaving behind families, homes, the very birthplace of our species. Some for discovery, to see the unknown. Others for a new start. But today, whatever our reasons, we take the first steps toward a new future for humanity. Today, we begin to make our dream reality.
So I should have just inserted a clip from the opening cutscene of Andromeda that, to me, really heavily implies that the ships were at least docked and launched like from the dark side of the moon, essentially. Well, that leads to some issues that I've never thought of before. I've only played Andromeda a couple times, and honestly, I probably never even paid attention to this cutscene until I just did. And the issue it brings up is that they didn't put together these ships and they didn't launch this mission from some desolate star system on the outer rim of the galaxy, where they were able to hide what they were doing and kind of quietly and secretly do their thing. They did it right beside Earth. There's literally like military bases on the moon. So, every ship leaving and coming to Earth would have seen this thing happening. And so I won't get too annoyed about it because it is what it is. But now finally noticing this, it's made me realize like there's no way everyone didn't know about this whole thing. And so then it just like kind of got me on this train of like, okay, in the Legendary Edition, they could have just recorded a few like of the background news stories and just thrown them in there. I know it's not that simple, but they could have done anything in the Legendary Edition to even just vaguely hint to the Andromeda initiative. And in Mass Effect 2, they could have had little stories of like news reports of these ships being built and people joining this initiative to go to a different galaxy with the supposed Reaper threat. And then in Mass Effect 3, they could have had stories being like, no word on the status of the Andromeda initiative if they're able to escape the galaxy before the Reapers hit, blah blah blah. They could have. I find it really hard to believe they couldn't have just done a little bit of work to do anything to connect Andromeda to the trilogy, because and I'm sure they'll address it in the next game. I'm sure they'll address it in no matter what the next game is, I'm sure they'll be like, yeah, I guess we never really talked about that, did we? Like, I assume they'll connect it in some capacity. But I'm telling you, at 11 o'clock last night when I was firing this up, and I noticed that these shuttles are flying past the moon and they come around the moon and there's the Nexus and the Hyperion and what, like, how's that? It annoys me because I feel like Andromeda was only made because they were scared to deal with the trilogy's endings. They didn't want to deal with that, even though it seems like they're probably going to tackle that issue with the next game. They originally were supposed to make a First Contact war game. They cut that to do Andromeda instead. I think that was a gigantic mistake. And I guess at the end of the day, there's just this little part of me that's like, it was the arrogance to just be like, we're just going to say they did all this stuff by the moon and we'll just ignore the fact that no one through 2 games mentions it at all, including the person on our ship who literally knows about everything that's happening in the entire galaxy. It really annoyed me more than it ever should. That's why I'm making this dumb video, and I'm kind of curious to what you think. If you know that I'm wrong, maybe I missed something here, let me know. I don't know all of the lore of Andromeda. I don't know. It just really annoys me. So let me know what you think. At the end of the day, I think they're gonna basically hand wave all of this with the next game one way or the other, and it won't matter in the long run. But it's just a baffling decision to me that they didn't even try to like vaguely be like, whoa, they did all this without anyone knowing. Nope, they just did it right by Earth and everyone should have known. So, okay, well, there's my rant for the day. Next week, I should have a video about why so many game devs and publishers and studios are moving to Unreal Engine, and I think I'll do a video of the most interesting like planet descriptions of the unknown worlds from Mass Effect 1 that I worked on during my last playthrough. So that's all I have for this one. Please subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment down below with what you think about it. Check me out on Twitter at Bondiesel. You can find me as Bondiesel on most platforms, including on Twitch at twitch.tv/Bondiesel, where I do stream a few times a week. And you can check out my podcast. It's a weekly news podcast called The Echo Cast. You can watch the VODs right here on this YouTube channel, or go to any of the podcast providers, type in The Echo Cast, and you will find it. That is all I have for this video. So until next time.